Being diagnosed with cancer at the age of 34 sucks. My name is Jelena, and this is the story of the first few weeks of emotions and appointments that happened when I was diagnosed with stage 3 rectal cancer. March is Colorectal Cancer Awareness Month, so I've decided to read the journal entries from the first few weeks of my diagnosis to share what it's really like to go through a cancer diagnosis, and also to help promote awareness for this cancer, which is on the rise in adults under the age of 50. To remind you where I left off the last time, my chemo pills were on the way and I was getting ready to begin taking them and start radiation treatment in just 4 days. Now join me for my final appointment before treatment begins. June 10th. Woke up this morning and after breakfast and Mael watching a show, we went to the gym so I could get in a 30-minute run before an early lunch. I'm feeling pretty tired in both my legs and my lungs today on the treadmill. So I was somewhat happy that I was interrupted not once but twice by doctor's offices about rescheduling my MRI. So instead of on the 21st, I'm going in on Monday the 13th. Once we get home, I try to get Mael to bed for a nap at a reasonable time so she can sleep before my 2:15 p.m. appointment at Dr. P's office for the dry run for my radiation treatment. She tossed and turned for a long time. Then at about the halfway point in her nap, she gets out of bed to go to the bathroom with only a half hour left until we need to leave for my appointment. I knew she hadn't been to sleep yet, and she wasn't going to fall asleep in time to get any rest before leaving. So annoyed, I went up and hurried her back into bed. Of course, she leaps out of bed the moment her clock turns green, so I know she never fell asleep. We leave home and pick up John from work on the way down to the office, and I park in the garage for the first time with my radiation oncology patient parking pass. The whole row of spaces next to the hospital entrance is reserved for radiation patients. When I check in, I get a badge so that every day from now on when I go, I can check myself in and walk back to the special waiting area for radiation patients, which is just closer to the machines. We get called back by one of the radiation nurses, N, and are shown to the new waiting room that I can go to from now on when I come in for treatment. I wait for a few minutes there, then she and D call for me to come on back. They show me the station where they will be watching me during my treatments, which includes a video of me on the table, a scan of the areas where they're treating, plus a few other monitors. The room with the radiation machine is much larger than I expected it to be. The machine itself is larger too than I imagined. They get me laid down on the table with my shorts and underwear halfway down my thighs, but with a cloth laid over my butt while they get me positioned correctly on the table. I have to lay face down, so I never get to see exactly what's going on. But once they're ready to start, the table I'm on rises up, moves forward, and the arms on the machine move around me to take x-rays. D comes back in, draws an outline of the treatment area on my right thigh/side butt area, then leaves again. She then comes back and draws on my backside the treatment area there. They give me the option to just keep the marker X's with tape over them, or to get small dot tattoos. And I opt for the tattoos just because I don't want to have to worry about washing off the tape or the X's for the next 6 weeks. They put a needle into each spot, and it was kind of like a shot. They injected the ink into the area and made a tiny spot, even smaller than a pinhead, but visible enough. When they were done, they asked if I wanted to have John and Mael come down into the room and see how it and the machine looked. So I said yes, and they went and brought them down. They were both surprised at the size of the machine, but otherwise Mael didn't really say much. Then we went back to the waiting room to wait for a nurse to talk about the radiation side effects. I got my schedule too. I'm down for the 3:30 p.m. slot every day starting on Wednesday. Monday I go in at 10:45 a.m., then they moved Tuesday's session up because we're supposed to have the chemo training class at 3:30 p.m. The nurse didn't go over anything earth-shattering. Most of the info was covered in the video we watched. The one thing I learned is that within the first few weeks, the bleeding that I'm having when I sit on the toilet should stop. Mael was playing on her tablet in my lap while we were talking with the nurse, and at one point the nurse mentioned that I may have diarrhea even at night, and Mael said, "Mommy might need nighttime undies." Right before dinner, C, a nurse from Dr. M's office, called to go over instructions for my Xeloda pills. They arrived this afternoon, so they're ready for me to start taking on Monday. She called in a prescription for an anti-nausea medication for me to have on hand for the start in case the chemo makes me sick right away. She said that if the first dose makes me sick, to take the anti-nausea meds 1 hour before the next dose of chemo to try and keep the nausea away. The other instructions she gave me were to make sure I swallow the pills and not to crush them up, and to try to take the doses 12 hours apart. Otherwise, the rest of the day was spent eating dinner, going to the new house to see how much progress has been made, and going out for ice cream a day late to celebrate Maëlle passing her Basic 1 ice skating class that finished yesterday. The house has most of the roof shingles on, almost all the windows in, and most of the Tyvek wrapping on. All the doors, including the garage, and the stairs going into the basement. I'm excited to see the progress and happy that I'll be able to see it to completion and live for many years there. June 11th. A calm weekend day. No calls from doctors, no appointments, just doing whatever we wanted. Which for the morning included getting the main floor cleaned up for my parents' arrival tomorrow evening. Our neighborhood's kids' carnival was held today from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., so we took Maëlle up around 11:30, and she had tons of fun, jumping in the bouncy house, sliding down an inflatable water slide, making spin art, and eating a snow cone. It was nice to relax and watch her have lots of fun. Her and I walked home on the path holding hands as her bathing suit dried off. It was a sunny 91 degrees today, and enjoyed looking at all the flowers on the walk. During her nap time, I got all my appointments organized in a physical calendar for my parents to have handy, and got all my receipts updated and quickened so that if I get too tired and don't feel like doing it over the next few weeks, I'm only weeks behind, not months. I also made some date bars, so I'll have another healthy snack option for when I don't feel like a meal, but need to eat something. I still need to come up with some dinners to eat for at least the first few days that they're here. Ugh. June 12th. Most of the day today was spent keeping Maëlle calm in her anticipation of my parents arriving. I went out for a run this morning while they Skyped with John's parents. The run was all right. I was feeling pretty tired and my lungs were working overtime, but I still managed an okay 3-mile time. I was super sweaty though when I got back home. In the afternoon, we tried to corral Maëlle's energy by having her do some cleaning up around the house, so that worked for a bit. Finally, after dinner, it was time to pick up my parents. We got to the airport early enough that John dropped us off at the terminal, and Maëlle and I jumped out and surprised them when they came out from the secure area of the airport. Maëlle hawked up a storm the whole way home, and it was really hard to get her to calm down once we got back home and put her to bed. Luckily, once we all left her bedroom, she fell asleep pretty fast. After putting Maëlle to bed, my mom brought down 2 bags for me. In one was an outfit Aunt C bought me, and in the other were some outfits that she bought me. All of it was comfy clothes for me to wear when I go in for my daily radiation treatments. I told her it was just what I needed, because all I really had was 1 pair of gaucho shorts to wear that are easy to slip on and off and wear halfway down my thighs. At bedtime, John asked me if I was ready for this, and I said I was mostly just nervous about how my body would handle the treatments, not really for the treatments themselves. I know I can beat this, so I'm not afraid of that part. I'm just nervous for how sick everything will make me in the meantime. June 13th. I woke up this morning at 5:45 a.m. to eat a muffin so I could take my first 2 chemo pills with 6 hours to spare before going in for my MRI. I couldn't really fall back asleep, but I finally did for a little bit before everyone started waking up for the morning. Maëlle went straight downstairs to see Grammy and Poppy, and I went to brush my teeth and help ignore the fact that the muffin wasn't a good enough breakfast and that I was hungry already. At 8:25 a.m., I got a call from the MRI office saying that someone canceled their appointment and they had an opening at 9 a.m. if I could make it. I told them that I had eaten a muffin at 5:45 a.m. and I was told I needed to fast for 6 hours, so would I even be allowed to come in for that 9 a.m. appointment? They put me on hold to ask the MRI technician, and when they got back on the phone, they said it would be fine, so I hurried and got dressed and drove over. Once there, I got to change into 2 hospital gowns, one opening towards the front and the other towards the back, and take everything else off, including underwear. The MRI tech got me and walked me across the hallway to the MRI room. She said that Dr. P probably didn't mention this, but when a person lays down, the rectum deflates and lays flat. So in order to get a good image of it, they have to insert a gel into the rectum to keep it inflated. I pretty much just said, whatever. I've had so many things stuck up my butt the past few weeks that what's one more thing? Once the gel was in, it just felt like I had a lot of gas that needed released. She put in the starter for an IV, but nothing was hooked up to it for the first part of the MRI. They had headphones for me to wear and listen to music during the imaging because the machine makes a lot of pretty loud noises. Once she left the room, she turned the headphones on and the music seemed really loud. But then once the machine started up, I could barely hear the music. The noises were a variety of buzzes that sounded like cheesy Atari sound effects to me. The machine made a lot of different buzzing noises too, I guess depending on the image it was doing at the time. They ran enough images to last at least 5 to 6 songs, then the table slid out of the machine. She injected the contrast liquid into my IV, then back into the machine I went for more images. Before I went back in, she asked where I had my colonoscopy done, so she could request those results and images to be put with the images of the MRI, so the surgeon would have a complete report on everything. I had to lay as still as possible, while still breathing, for all the images. The machine was open on both ends, but I still got a bulb to hold that I could squeeze if I ever panicked and needed to stop the machine and have her come back in. It wasn't bad, it just took a long time. The first buzzes kind of made me laugh, but I just tried to focus on staying calm, so I closed my eyes and tried to relax as much as I could for the whole thing. Once I was all done, she said that she called Dr. P's office to let them know that I'd just finished and was on my way over because it was 5 minutes until my radiation appointment. Luckily, the MRI machine was in the same building as the cancer center, so I just had to walk around the corner to get to my appointment. My parents, John, and Mael were all there waiting, so they followed me back into the radiation waiting room. We only waited a minute or two before I was called back by B, and I asked her if I could bring my parents back to look at the machine, so everyone filed back to check it out. She and the other nurse R explained the machine, where the radiation came out, how it worked, and how much radiation came out. Then I grabbed my phone to take a picture of me and the machine as they all went back to the waiting room. I then hopped onto the table to get ready for my first treatment. The table moved, I heard the machine moving, then there was a soft buzzing noise that lasted for about 15 seconds in 3 different positions. Then it was all over. When I went back out to the waiting area, there was a volunteer sister that was introducing herself to everyone and praying for all of them. She talked to us for a few minutes and was shocked that I was the one getting treated. And she said she'll be there a few days a week and will pray with everyone that comes in if they want to. Once I got back home, I posted on Facebook for the rest of my friend world to know that I started cancer treatment today. Then, since I was starving, we had lunch, put Mael down for a nap, then I napped too. I was exhausted. I stayed in bed for about 2 hours, then came down to answer a work email and get Mael and I's plane tickets changed for Janelle's wedding so I can get radiation treatment on that Thursday the 30th. Delta was nice enough to waive the change fee for the tickets. I just had to give them the name and number of the doctor that was treating me. I had enough energy to make an easy dinner, but had Mom help me with making the salad. My appetite is still healthy and I ate a good dinner. Then it was already time for Mael to go up for her bath in bed. After I put her to bed, I went out for a walk for a half hour or so with my parents so that I could get in a little exercise. I'll try to go for a walk every day with them in the evening to get in a little bit of exercise no matter how I'm feeling. I'm not really feeling any side effects yet, but it's only day 1. I'm really glad that I didn't immediately have to start using the anti-nausea pills with the chemo. We'll see what the future holds. June 14th. This morning during Mael's tennis class, I went for a run down the path that runs next to a creek. My legs felt so tired and my lungs couldn't keep up either. I didn't quite make it to 3.5 miles, but I was exhausted once I was done. I think I may have to stop running and stick to walking during my treatment. Or maybe a mix of running and walking, because straight up running doesn't seem to be working so well lately. We got Mael down for a nap at a reasonable hour. I tried to nap for 45 minutes or so, but couldn't fall asleep. Then it was time to head down for my radiation treatment at 2:30. Dad drove me down, and John, Mael, and my mom would meet us at the cancer center for our chemo training class. Since it's Tuesday, it is also doctor visit day. So after my treatment, we were taken down to a room to talk with Dr. P. He said he had looked at my MRI from yesterday, and it looks like the tumor is actually 7 centimeters from my anus, not 4 centimeters. So sphincter preservation has a much higher chance of actually happening now. So that was great news. He said he still needed to go over the results with the oncologist, but his initial view looked promising. Otherwise, it was a quick visit because I just started my treatment. I made it out of the radiation department by 3:10, and we walked over to the pavilion for the training. They took me back a few minutes before 3:30 p.m., and John hadn't even arrived yet. The nurse took my vitals. Then, as we were moving to the classroom, I peeked into the waiting area and saw everyone else, so I flagged them down so everyone could come back with me. We had to wait for a bit for the PA to arrive, and she had a broken foot or ankle in a cast and had to wheel herself in on one of those self-propelled scooters that you just put the injured leg on. She first asked if I had any questions, so I asked her the list of questions that I had prepared, including if it was okay for me to have a drink or two at Janelle's wedding. She made it sound like no one had ever asked that question before and was wondering why I would even want to have a drink, but she said it was okay as long as it was in moderation. She had to check on if acupuncture was okay, which she found out was just fine. Then she went over her spiel, and the main thing that I'll be doing is a mouthwash rinse after every meal that consists of water, salt, and baking soda. It's meant to help keep the mouth from developing sores, which I think would be pretty miserable and I'd love to avoid getting. She also mentioned that I'd have to get regular blood work and that I need to go in a few days before my next appointment with Dr. M. After my appointment, John drove me home while my parents took Mael out on a mission. They went out to buy flowers for my empty pots and planted them when they got back home. I wasn't allowed to look until they were all done, and Mael led me to the backyard to show me her work. It was all her idea to get the flowers, and she did most of the planting herself. They were very pretty and make the empty pots look much nicer. There's still plenty more of my story to share, so make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss when I post the rest of the videos detailing the rest of my story. If you liked this video, please click the like button below and consider sharing it with your friends to help me increase awareness for this disease. Thank you for watching.